Welcome to The Reader's Couch, a podcast that brings you lively conversations with some of your favourite authors and bookish personalities. Over here, the couch is always booked, but I've moved some books to the side table and fluffed some cushions so I can welcome a guest or two to come lounge with us. Today on the couch, we have Shana Abe, an author who is transporting readers to New York, Egypt, and aboard the ill-fated Titanic through her historical fiction novel inspired by the scandalous, real-life love story between America's richest man and a beautiful teenage debutante. Stay tuned. A collection of poetry to keep on your radar is I Hope This Finds You Well by Kate Baer. The author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, What Kind of Woman, returns with a collection of poems created from notes she's received from followers, supporters, and online trolls. At first, the darker messages and vitriol from online trolls crowding Kate's inbox resulted in an immediate delete and block. Until one day, Kate decided to transform the cruelty into art and create fresh and intriguing poems. These pieces, along with ones made from notes of gratitude and love, as well as words from public figures, have now become some of her most beloved work. I Hope This Finds You Well is a book of poetry birthed in the darkness of the internet that now offers light, hope, and empowerment by showing how we too can turn bitterness and what's ugly or painful in our own lives into something beautiful. I Hope This Finds You Well by Kate Baer is being published by Harper Perennial, and books go on sale on November 9th, 2021. So be sure to visit your local bookseller or library so you can get your hands on a copy. Again, it's entitled I Hope This Finds You Well by Kate Baer. Hi readers, welcome again to The Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is the award-winning New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestselling author of more than a dozen novels, including the Sweet Dark series and the Draken series. But she's here to talk to me about her latest novel, The Second Mrs. Astor. Please welcome to the couch, Shana Abe. Hey, Shana, how are you?
Hello, I am very well. How are you?
I'm doing good, and I'm so excited to have you here on the show. Really thrilled about your new novel, The Second Mrs. Astor. But hey, it's out in the world now. Readers can get their hands on a copy. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? How excited are you?
A zillion! I'm so happy. I'm so happy. This book has been 3 years in the making, and I'm just like, thank God, it's finally out, finally.
Woohoo! I'm thrilled. So tell our listeners, Shana, I really want them to hear it from you. Tell us about your novel, The Second Mrs. Astor, and what can readers expect going in?
Okay, The Second Mrs. Astor is my historical fiction debut, and it does feature Jack Astor IV, or actually he's John Jacob Astor IV, known as Jack, and his very young, very scandalously young teenage wife, Madeleine Force Astor. And it is their brief and somewhat tragic story that ends with the Titanic. So as soon as I say Titanic, you know what's going to happen. It's like, as soon as you say Romeo and Juliet, you know what's going to happen, but you're still kind of drawn to it anyway, because it's just such an iconic part of our past, of our world history. And so it is basically the story of them meeting and falling in love, and her becoming instantly, horribly, kind of catastrophically famous for being in love with this wealthy older man. He was nearly 30 years older than she was. And when they met, she was 17 and he was not. And he was also the richest man in America. And she was just this young, sheltered teenage socialite. They met in Bar Harbor in 1910. And apparently, according to nearly everyone that I could find records of, they were instantly smitten with each other, like genuinely infatuated with each other. Jack was, I would say recently divorced, but he was actually divorced over a year previously. But it was still very shocking and scandalous, even just to get a divorce back then. It just wasn't done. But he and his first wife were married for like 19 years. They had 2 children, and they were miserable together. She was apparently this extremely gorgeous and well-connected woman, and they loathed each other. They loved each other. It was an arranged marriage. And so as soon as Jack's mother, Lena Astor, who was known as the Mrs. Astor, the leader of high New York society, as soon as she passed away, they got divorced. They weren't going to do it in her lifetime, but they did it almost right away. So that was a scandal. And then him meeting and starting to court this 17-year-old socialite, this sheltered teenager, was even more of a scandal. And then the press noticed. And as soon as the press noticed, oh my God, her life was just upended. She was followed wherever she went. She was in the paper. Her picture was published. Anything she said was published and frequently, misquoted. And she was just, her world turned upside down, but she stuck with it. She stuck with it. She stuck with him. They fell in love, and slowly they maneuvered their life around this fishbowl of attention, this unrelenting scrutiny of attention. But when they got married, which was about a year after they started dating, or dating is a very modern word, after they started their courtship, let's say, they got married, and then they still could not escape the press because the press just hounded them wherever they went. So finally, just to get away from it all, they decided to take an extended trip to Europe and to Egypt. And they went with a very good friend of theirs whose name was Margaret Brown. Today we call her the unsinkable Molly Brown, but that is not what she went by in her lifetime. That was just something that was made up in the 50s, I think, for the musical, because the authors thought that Molly would be an easier thing to sing than Margaret. So they really, truly went with Margaret Brown to Egypt, and they were there for months, going up and down the Nile and seeing the ruins. And they were so happy. Everything was beautiful. Madeleine discovers that she's pregnant with their first child. So they decide to go back to America on the most luxurious, state-of-the-art steamship that was ever built, which was Titanic. And after that, the Titanic happened, the iceberg happened, everything happened. And so that is the story.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm super excited, but also I'm really intrigued about this story. I mean, what inspired you to write this book? Where did you find this story? Because again, it's just, something I didn't hear about. It was a complete unknown to me. So tell us your inspiration for the novel and how did you come upon this story?
Yeah, it is actually very shocking to me that Madeleine is not more famous than she is right now. The truth is, the story originally came about through my publisher. They contacted me and said, hey, you want to write a story about Titanic? And I was like, isn't that kind of done? But they're like, no, do something new. So I started thinking about it. And I'm like, I remember Madeleine Astor, and you never really read anything about her, even though at her time, in 1912, she was the most famous widowed mother in the United States and maybe in the world, really. I mean, she was considered what I would say is a young Princess Diana of her time. So it is very surprising to me that we don't know that much about her today. And doing the research about her, I basically had to piece together period articles, mostly from the New York Times, because that was kind of her hometown paper, about where she was, what she did. The earliest article I could find about her was she was like 5 years old and she was playing bells in a Christmas choir. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. But then, yeah, she was always in the press, but we don't really remember her anymore. And I thought she was a very compelling character. I'm like, here's this teenager who's insanely famous and married to this man. And then, it's not a spoiler alert, Jack dies on Titanic, but he dies a hero. He dies saving other people. And he even saved the dogs, which sort of broke my heart a little bit. He was known to go as the ship was sinking and there were no more boats. He had stayed behind and he went to the kennels and released all the dogs so that they would have a chance to live. Hopefully that didn't happen. But so sorry, that was a bit rambling, but that was my story. I decided upon Madeleine Astor as my protagonist because she was real, she was interesting, and we don't know that much about her anymore. She just has sort of faded from our collective memory.
Absolutely, because again, prior to reading your book, I had no idea who this woman was. Zero idea about her story. But now I kind of want to play a little game with you, Shana. Reading the story, and I'm sure readers can just, gather from the book summary as well, that Jack and Madeline had somewhat of, what do they call it, May to December kind of romance.
Yes.
So, quick question. Do you think their relationship was romantic or dark?
From my point of view as an author, it had to be romantic. But as an author, I have to admit, I was like, if this was really an older man going after a teenager, a very powerful and wealthy older man. And in that sense, I tried to address this in the story, actually, with a conversation between Madeleine and her father, that Jack seemed to have all the power. There was a great imbalance of power. And her father replies, honey, you have power too. You have the power to walk away, which she didn't do. And again, she was not poor. She was from a very solidly upper class family. She had money of her own. She didn't need to marry anybody. She would have been perfectly fine. She was an heiress. And she wasn't in the Knickerbocker group, but she didn't really want to be because they were really mean to her. They were super mean. So I'm going to say romantic because otherwise I don't know why she would have gone through what she did on purpose.
Romantic. Okay, so I'm going to list 3. So this is a game. We've agreed Jack and Madeleine's relationship. We're going to say romantic. I'm with you on that one.
Okay.
But I'm going to list 3 May to December romances in literature. They're classics because they're the first things that came to my mind. And then you're going to let me know whether they're romantic or dark. And I'm also going to answer too, so it will be fun.
Okay, I hope I know who they are.
Well, I hope so too. All right. So, Jane and Mr. Rochester from Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Romantic or dark?
Dark.
Okay.
Sorry. I just hear Bronte and I'm like, dark.
I vote dark too. The second Mrs. De Winter and Mr. De Winter from Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Romantic or dark?
Oh, man, that's a good one. Boy, I'm torn with that because I was so upset with her for being such a doormat. And I just wanted her to fire that housekeeper so bad. But she didn't. She just got bullied and bullied. So I don't know. But then she stayed with him at the end, even after everything burned down. So can I say both?
I'm happy you said that because I wanted to say both too. And to be fair, Rebecca is my favorite. Rebecca's my favorite book. I love it. It's a running joke. If there were to be a house fire, knock on wood, I would grab my edition of Rebecca, my Folio Society edition of Rebecca. I'd chuck other classics out the door, other contemporaries out the door, but I would hang on to Rebecca before I go out the front door. So you can say both. Only because it's Rebecca.
Okay, good.
All right. So our last May to December romance. So I don't even know. Yeah, this was a romance. Joe's obsession with Professor Barr in Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Was that romantic or dark?
Wait, Joe's obsession with who?
There was a professor in Little Women by Louisa May Alcott.
Yeah.
I think his name was Barr. I should have looked this up. I'm bad.
The professor that she ends up with.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Joe's
romantic or dark?
The thing about Little Women is I know a lot about the history of why that novel was written. And so I want to say dark.
You're going to say dark?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say dark too. So we are both on the same page. Yay! Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing with me. So even though we're here, obviously, to talk about the second Mrs. Astor, readers always want book recommendations anyway. So what books are on your nightstand right now? But if you don't remember, what books are you looking forward to reading?
Okay, I have to say right now, I'm in the midst of research. So it's not books that anybody else is really going to want to read. I'm researching my next story, and fortunately, it's also set in the Gilded Age, so I have all my reference books ready. But I will say, recently, a fiction novel I read was The Tangleroot Palace by Marjorie Liu. Gosh, I hope I'm saying her name right. And it's a collection of very dark fairy tale stories that I was just like, damn, that's good. She's really good. I love that. I think that's the last thing I read recently.
Is there a book you're looking forward to reading maybe in the year ahead? It could be a new book, old book, really doesn't matter. But what are you looking forward to in your downtime when you're not researching?
I am going to read something by Barbara O'Neill because she's a friend of mine and she's a fantastic novelist. And I love her stories because they're so real feeling. And yet they have a little tiny hint of like magic threaded through the background, but it's very subtle. And they always have happy endings, which make me happy too.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. So you mentioned you're researching right now, so I just think it appropriate to ask right now, are you working on any other books? What projects? You said Gilded Age, so that gave me an idea. Are we getting another historical novel? And when can we look forward to it, if you have an idea?
Yes, it is another historical novel. It is also starring a real life person from that era who was quite wealthy. I don't want to say too much. That's annoying, I know, but she was a very real person who it's basically a rags to riches story, but like rags to rich, richety, riches. And she had this very mysterious background that she worked her whole life to obscure. So my historical novel about her is going to be a lot about where she began rather than where she ends. I open with the ending, kind of like I did with the second Mrs. Astor, when Madeleine is writing a letter to her newborn son after Jack's death. But with this one, I open with her when she's already super established, super wealthy, super famous. And then I go back to her teenage years, like, well, how did she get there? It's a mystery. And the interesting thing about this character, this woman, is that she was known to lie about her age. She was known to lie about where she was from. She was intelligent and fierce and cunning as anything. So I found her very interesting. And it should be coming out, I think, in 2023, although don't hold me to that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So on writing, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
Run away. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. I would just tell myself persistence. I think I wrote my first book when I was 17 and I was living in Japan and I was modeling, and I would take this notebook with me to jobs. And during the downtime, I would just start scribbling this romance, this terrible, terrible romance that I would just wanted to write. And that got put away and lost, thank goodness. But yeah, my first, I think 2 manuscripts got rejected by agents and publishing houses. And I did not give up. I went back and tried one more time, and it was the third time that was the charm, and I got an agent and then I got it published. So persistence is the key. Persistence. Believe in yourself, believe in your story, and just keep going.
Just keep going. Awesome. Yeah. So we're big fans on this podcast, newsletter, social media, everything we do. We love our local indie bookstores. Share with our listeners some of your favorites. It could be local, childhood favorites, something you discovered while traveling. Yeah, just share with us some of your favorite bookstores.
Well, my childhood and my local bookstore is the Tattered Cover in Denver, which is this very iconic place. It was a real treat to have my mom take me there when I was a kid because it was just so many books. And you could just have any book that you wanted, although I couldn't because I was on an allowance. But it was just this beautiful, amazing place. And it still exists. I mean, it's been there since the 70s. So that's how good they are. And I love it. I love there. But right now, I don't live in Denver. I live in this very tiny little mountain town called Westcliff. I spend my summers here doing community theater, actually. And there is a local bookstore, but they won't stock my books because they see I'm not local enough. But I still really like them because it's run by like some very nice people. And I'm sure I can someday sweet talk them into putting my books out.
Yes, someday. I'm here rooting for you. It's going to happen. Yay, keep it into being. Yeah. All right. So I love games. Okay. And it's obvious because here I go with the second one.
Another game.
I know, but I got thinking, right? Titanic is in play here. Mm-hmm. And some folks haven't been able to travel. Some have been lucky and they've gotten out there. But for folks who haven't traveled, I think this novel is very transportive. We get to see different places. I mean, Madeleine and Jack, they went on a honeymoon to Egypt. Hello.
Yeah.
They are living life here. So the game is, if we could hop on a plane, or in this case, a ship, definitely not the Titanic, where would we go? So I'm going to give both of us 2 destinations. I'm telling you, I just thought of this right now. I Googled some big cruise destinations and we're going to choose either or. Okay. So, Shana, would you go to the south of France or Bora Bora?
I haven't been there. I've been to the south of France and it's awesome, but try something new. Bora Bora.
Same here. I've been to the south of France, but I definitely do Bora Bora because I need something new. Okay. Alaska or Vienna?
Oh, I have not been to either of those places. I'm going to say Vienna.
I'm going with Alaska because I've been to Vienna. So, all right. Next stop. Oh, okay. Singapore or Scotland?
Oh, I'm going to say Singapore because, again, I've been to Scotland.
Okay.
But if you go to Singapore, you have to be very careful not to spit on the sidewalk or chew gum or anything because they have some pretty strict laws. So be careful when you go to Singapore, but it's supposed to be amazing.
They do. Okay, so here are two places I've never been to. So are we going to Hawaii or Japan?
Oh, see, I've been to both of those. I actually lived in Japan, but I love Hawaii. Can we go to both? Because it's just if you stop in Hawaii, you can just keep going to Japan.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take your advice. We're going to go to Japan and then just scoot on over to Hawaii and then come back to the States. All right. I like that. And last one, I've been to these two now. Greece or Turkey? Where are you going?
Greece, because I love tzatziki so much.
You are a woman after my own heart. I love tzatziki. Just give me some pizza bread. I'll sit down with a big bowl and I'll eat. I love it.
I know. It's so delicious. It's so good.
I don't know why. I was just so inspired by the fact they went to Egypt. The Titanic thing happened. I know it's tragic, but they were seeing the world here. They were living.
They were. I mean, and you know what's surprising to me is that here is the richest man in America, and he doesn't have like really an entourage or bodyguards or anything. They just go. It's him and his wife, her maid, and his valet, and that's it.
You know, some things are so wildly different from present day.
Yeah.
But the one thing I thought was quite the same and a bit sad was the media, the press, the scandal, you know, and writing these salacious stories.
Right. Yes.
That's still, you know, a big thing today. But you're right. They could just live, travel, no entourage, no security crew. Right. Nothing like today. But at the same time, I thought the press's handling of the situation was a bit extreme, I guess.
Yes. So in the book, I actually have excerpts that I'm going to confess, I made these up, but it's from this tabloid scandal sheet called Town Topics, which was a real thing. Mm-hmm. It was run by this man named Colonel Mann. And his deal was, this is so evil and so smart. He would uncover scandals about the elite of the elite, and then he would print a story about that person without ever using their name, but just saying a certain debutante who was known to drink too much champagne at certain parties did such and such. And then he would contact the party and say, if you pay me this much money, I won't print the story. And that's how he got really, really rich. And so the Astors were known not to pay his thing. Oh, and the way he would make it so that he couldn't be sued is that, again, he would never print their name, but then on the other side of the page, he would have a picture of that person. So it was really obvious who it was.
Oh, wow.
And he got away with that for a long time. And he is known actually now as the inventor of this scandal sheet style of reporting. And that's, you were speaking about how it's the same today. He started that with Town Topics. And that's also going to be in my next book.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I definitely love seeing connections sometimes between books. But yeah, that was the one thing that stood out to me, just how the press operates.
Right.
But it was also very transportive to kind of go back to the Gilded Age. But on that note, Shana, I mean, how do you want readers to feel after reading The Second Mrs. Astor? You know, what reactions are you hoping for, or just maybe some takeaways, or just some thoughts readers might have?
Oh, you know, I'm going to just straight up say this is a bittersweet love story, and life is like that at times. It's not a romance novel, which is what I'm known for. It's definitely has a bittersweet ending. I just, gosh, what do I hope you feel? I hope you feel uplifted and transformed and enlightened, and know that resilience is possible even after a great tragedy strikes.
Right. Absolutely. Shana, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me and playing my quirky games, even though one was just right off the fly. I promise y'all.
That was awesome. I really loved it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You guys, Shana's latest novel, The Second Mrs. Astor, is available in bookstores now, so get your hands on a copy.
Yay!
Yay! Readers, I had so much fun with author Shana Abe, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank her again for coming and lounging on the couch with us. This week will be a huge publication week for so many authors. There will literally be a flood of books gracing bookshelves on Tuesday, September 7th. But I'm going to spotlight 15 new and noteworthy titles for you to keep on your radar. So if you're in the market for literary fiction, keep an eye out for Fault Lines by Emily Itami, The Archer by Shruti Swami, and the most anticipated Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. If you're looking for historical fiction, keep an eye out for The Royal Correspondent by Alexandra Joel and a highly anticipated Matrix by Lauren Groff. For our sci-fi and fantasy readers, No Gods, No Monsters by Cadwell Turnbull will be available this week. And if you're looking for short fiction and a story collection, check out How by Yi Chun. For readers looking for thrillers, I have 4 books to spotlight. We have Friends Like These by Kimberly McCreight, Nice Girls by Catherine Dang, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. A memoir I'm looking forward to is Forever Young by Hayley Mills. There's also a young adult memoir entitled We Are Not Broken by George M. Johnson. For all romance readers and someone looking for a feel-good read, we have The Shadi Setup by Lily Vale and Mom Jeans and Other Mistakes by Alexa Martin. You can find a list with all these books and their summaries along with the show notes over at thereaderscouch.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Reader's Couch. You can find out more about the show and submit your questions for our guest by visiting our website, thereaderscouch.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Couch Is Booked. If you like the show, please subscribe, share, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Next week, I'll be back with new guests, more books, and some fun games we can play. But until then, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.